My first episode, the pub, you can barely hear us, and it sounds like the whole time. I was like, I have to switch mics immediately. So I never did another episode for like 3 months until I got enough money to buy some good mics and learn how which mics work. So but anyway, welcome back to the Traveling Businessman. I'm Corey Carr, the creative director. Mr. Chad, please tell everyone who you are and what you do.
Hello, I'm Chad Hembry. I am the Executive Director of Spotlight Performing Arts. We have the Spotlight Playhouse in Berea and Spotlight Acting School.
Yeah, so that's where we are now. And when you pull up, I love the artwork you guys have on the wall. It makes you feel like being a theater kid again.
Yeah, we wanted it to be a fun place, so we wanted it to look fun. And there's another mural behind the building you probably haven't seen as well.
Well, I drive from behind the building.
So you've seen the back.
Yeah, I drove past the bank on the other side, so I got to see it, and it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. Something that I wish we had in our apartment buildings to make it look a little better. So how did you get started in doing Spotlight?
Back in 2004, a good friend of mine and my mentor, Kathy Bettler, formed Spotlight Acting School and helped her out for several years. And then in 2014, I took over as director when she unexpectedly passed away. So that was a sad day for us, but we keep her dream alive here.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that, but I mean, it's great that it's still going on. So how did you act before you got into helping out in 2004?
Yes. I was a performing arts major in performance and studied that, and it's always been a dream of mine. In high school, I was in all the plays and music and choir, and anytime I could be on stage, I found a way. And it didn't matter what genre. If I was singing country music, that was awesome. If I was singing rock, it didn't matter. If it was Broadway, let it out.
So have you seen the difference between the screen as it was shown back then versus how it is now? Like, Broadway was much bigger then. People had to go out and see it. How's it been watching the change from watching that to now? Okay,
you're talking about before COVID or even earlier than that?
Early, like when you first got started versus the way people do things now, because everything is digital.
I think it's better now. Do you know why it's better?
So? Why?
Because more people can experience something that only a few of us got to experience back in the 80s and early 90s.
Right.
If you didn't pay the big ticket and go see the Broadway show, you didn't really know. You could get a CD or something, but you didn't have digital streaming. You had to actually go get a CD or borrow a CD or go to the store and get a CD. Or you had to go actually see the show. So it was such a small percentage of the population that even experienced the Broadway kind of whole feeling that you get, seeing these live shows. And now there's a Broadway channel you can have, right? Where you can watch shows all the time. And I think it's incredible. Arts to everyone, yeah.
Yeah, that is. I mean, I really didn't expect that answer. I kind of expected to go the other way. So I'm pleasantly surprised.
Well, I love the performing arts, and I want everyone to experience it. So the more that can, and then if you get that little bug that bites you, then you're like, well, I want to go see one of those shows. Well, come on down to the Playhouse. We have them every single weekend.
Right.
We are nonstop performances here.
Yeah, I love Broadway. I'm the only one in my family growing up that liked Broadway, right? So I was end up being the only one that did any acting. So that experience when you first got to experience, Broadway, did it run in your family or did you come across it at some point?
No. My family were contractors and craftsmen, and I had to do a lot of convincing that there wasn't anything wrong with me, that it was actually a good thing. And it's funny, it did win my family over eventually. They all enjoy it now, coming to see shows, especially the comedies. Now some of them like the straight plays a little more than the musicals, but yeah.
So what was your feeling when you got the whiff, the first itch for you? What was that feeling like?
Elementary school. Her name was Marilyn Isaacs, my music teacher. They actually, at Silver Creek Elementary, they've named the gymnatorium after her. Yeah. She was the one who took me to state to perform in Louisville several times in elementary, and I got kind of in with the group of people that liked the same things I liked. And we would always do the school Christmas programs and, all those type things there at the elementary school. So it stuck. Yeah. Then I went into middle school and had Miss Abbott, who was just awesome, who continued that same thing. And then on into high school, where we had a wonderful director. Kathy Bettler was my director, the one that started Spotlight.
So I wanted to ask, you know, in some career paths, like let's say someone's a basketball player and they're pretty good, their path is usually to the NBA, right? But it may not be so cut and clear for an actor. So what is that career? What are you thinking whenever you're in high school? It's like, how long do I continue to do this, or what's the next step for me?
Well, it depends on if you're a laser focused type person, or if you're like, I like doing it all type person, or do you enjoy teaching it more, or do you enjoy doing it more? I found that I enjoy teaching it and directing. Even though I like acting, I've done a lot of it, and I still continue to do it. I prefer to direct and to teach. It's just something I enjoy more. And I get more pleasure out of watching my actors succeed and go on to do good things than I did my own successes. But if you're an actor, you should try it all early as possible. Film acting is way different. We have a film school here, by the way, as well. Film acting is way different than stage acting. One is supposed to be realistic, and the other one is supposed to be really big, right? And then, commercial acting is different than. I'm trying to think of. Musicals are way different than straight plays. I mean, there's so many different options out there. Now, if you're dead set on musicals and that's your thing, you're gonna have to go to New York,
right?
Eventually, right? That's where you have to go. That's the only place where you can make a real living at it. Now, you might get in a touring group that goes everywhere, but that's gotta be your first step. I mean, there aren't many jobs in the world where you say you have to go one place to get started, but that's one of them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even in today's world, they kind of have a chokehold on that, right?
Yeah.
And I think LA started to try to break into it, but it's still New York is the place to go.
Now, for movies or TV, little better options. New York is an option. Atlanta is a good option now.
Right.
Yeah, so you don't have to travel as far. And of course, LA is always going to be there. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I mean, anything to do with a camera is going to be LA sometimes. So. For you, which one do you enjoy directing the most? Is it Broadway, is it film, is it commercial?
I enjoy directing straight play mysteries and comedies the most. The ones where the audience really has to focus on what's going on, and then you hit them with something funny, and then they just talk about it for a week.
Yeah. You know what was interesting? I did musicals growing up, and it started off in church. I was my grandparents were the preachers, and I lived with my grandparents, so no matter what, I had to go to church. Yeah. And any play that happened,
I think that's a good thing.
it turned out to be a good thing. I turned out to be okay. So, I had to go do all the plays with my cousins, and never got cast as the main character, but that's okay. I had all the joke characters. I was the joke, right? So we did a lot of musicals, and I had to do a lot of singing, and I got out of it for a year when I went to school, and then went back because I watched Amadeus, my music teacher as well. So as soon as she said music teacher, like, it's always the music teachers that get you. So she had a play, The Boy Who Cried Wolf, and I was the shepherd, and it was enjoyable. It's the last musical I'd done since my voice changed. So I haven't done another play since, but that was the most enjoyable, was watching Amadeus and thinking, I want to be in that. I want to be in this area with these type of people who are creative and get that feeling all the time. So that's the reason why I asked is, what was that feeling like for you? For me, Amadeus captured me forever. I love that movie.
My first musical that really just tugged at my heartstrings and said, this is something you should be doing, was actually Rodgers and Hammerstein's Oklahoma, believe it or not. I know it's not the most action-packed one out there, right, but to this day, it is very dear to me. I was in Greece, so Greece will always be kind of special to me as well.
Yeah.
And Bye Birdie is another one. Yeah.
So how was? I do want to ask this because I'm quite young, right? So I'm not sure about some things. How was Grease when it first hit the theaters? How did people receive that?
It was so raunchy that audiences were a little bit skeptical about whether this thing was going to go. They didn't even take it to New York. They opened it in Chicago to be safe. Okay? Once they started selling it in Chicago for a while, then they kind of toned it a little bit before they moved to New York. But it was quite the pushing the boundaries even then. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, when the movie came out, they just completely rewrote, to make it much more friendly. Even though they only have a few of the cute cues in there that it was originally kind of bad. But yeah.
Yeah, that's always been interesting is listening to how people think about it now, because you get that bias as time goes by versus how things were when it first hit the theaters. So that's an interesting perspective.
If you want to check it out, go onto YouTube. Anyone watching it, and if you go onto YouTube and find the yellow CD, you'll see where someone's put the label on there. That's the original Grease that was recorded in Chicago. I'm warning you, it's not going to be the Grease you've seen on TV. But if you want to know what we're talking about, you can check that out.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely going to go watch that. I remember watching it, as a kid versus 20s, a movie. And, my girlfriend and I are watching, and it was like, I can't believe people thought these were adults. I mean, these were teenagers. John Travolta's like 30. No way. But it's an amazing movie still to this day. So I want to ask you, what's going on in Spotlight? Like, what do you have going on right now, and what do you guys have going on in the future?
We're in recovery mode. Because we died in 2020, right? Along with the world.
Right.
It all shut down. We weren't allowed to perform. We weren't allowed to be open. And then when we did open, we had to do the social distancing every other chair, and people were still afraid to come. There was a performance exemption where people could be on stage without masks, but a lot of people were nervous to do that, and then some people wouldn't come because of it. So we had to really walk a tightrope there and try to figure out how to navigate this thing. And nobody had the right answers. We didn't know. Nobody knew. We all loved each other and wanted to make it work, but it's just what it is. So last year was actually the most difficult year. There was financial assistance for programs like ours in 2020 because they'd shut everything down and like, oh, we're going to help you.
Right.
In 2021, there were some loan things and whatnot available to kind of help us a little bit. But then in 2022, they were like, oh, no, you're back on your own. Just get it done. But people weren't back yet. Audiences were not here. Actors still weren't coming out like they had been before. So we were literally in the deep end of the pool needing swimming lessons with no swimmies,
Right.
So it was scary. And then I don't know what happened at the very end of 2022, say October-ish, the audience started coming back. We had a few sold out shows. We picked up the ball with that and kind of ran with it and picked up some more expensive shows. And right now we're doing pretty darn good. We started off the year with a comedy called You Can't Beat the House, and we had 2 weekends of sold out shows, and audiences loved it.
That's one of the questions I was going to bring up, because one of my favorite places closed, and I always bring this up, is Burger. I don't know if you've ever been, but in Richmond, best burgers in Madison County.
Awesome.
But they ended up closing because of COVID, right? So it's one of the things I bring up for places. So how was it for you economically before COVID, and how was it with the audience before COVID?
In 2019, say 17, 18, 19, you needed to get your tickets in advance because we were selling out very regularly, and we had a packed schedule of shows every single weekend. We were doing 2 shows, one in our theater and one in our hall. So one would start at 7 or 6, depending on how long it was, and one would start at 8.
Right. Yeah, it's a sad thing to see. So how was it? Because I started my business after COVID, which I got very lucky with that. So how was it for you guys and some of your compatriots whenever you heard the news in 2020? I think it was maybe early February.
I am a kind of a news junkie, and I was watching it in China way before it got here, and I saw what was going on, and I kept telling my wife, I said, if that comes here, we're going to have some issues. And what was it, February when
they announced the shutdown? Yeah.
And I think it came harder and faster than I ever imagined, but I kind of watched it, when it would hit Europe and whatnot.
Yeah, it was very interesting because, I mean, it sucked obviously, but it was very interesting because in Kentucky alone, it say, yeah, we only have one case in Lexington. Then it said 2 cases the next day. Then it went to 50 the next month. And then it was like, okay, shut down completely. And it was crazy because, I was thinking only 1 case of COVID in Lexington, that's not going to hurt anybody. And then, then I couldn't leave my house for months, and I'm watching Tiger King at home. So it was interesting. And then, so how did you feel initially when you heard that we were just going to shut down? Did you think it was the right choice?
2 different feelings. One is, I don't know. I mean, it was running rampant other places and it was killing people. So, what do you do?
Right.
I'm no medical expert. I can sing and dance. But the other side of me was, Mr. Freedom. Why are you shutting down my business?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm always going to have that. I got libertarian in me. I just can't have that. Yeah.
I think that's every reaction of the business owner. It's like, this is the biggest nightmare you could possibly have. Yeah. I mean, outside of like a nuke. Mm-hmm. So, since you said that, I am interested because I've always thought about this. If watching the news in China and seeing this COVID thing spread throughout their economy and their people. Do you find it interesting that we were still allowing so many flights outside of China directly to the U.S., especially during that time?
We're the melting pot. I mean, over here on this side of the country, maybe China seems so far removed.
Some people, yeah.
But if you live in California, in a lot of the bigger cities, and even up the West Coast there, it's just a generation removed. It's not that far.
Right.
You go to school with somebody who has a grandparent or somebody living over there. Okay, you see what I mean? Right. So that's a hard one, man, because we're talking about this. That's our families.
That's true. That's true.
We can throw the politics around all the day, but we're talking about grandmas and grandpas and aunts and uncles and
It's
they live over there. That's so when you say shut it down. I mean, we saw this happen with Cuba. Florida, had all those people that were cut off for years from their family.
Right. Yeah. It's crazy too, though, because comparing that to. I remember it being in high school when this happened. I know I'm young, but Ebola was a big thing, and everyone was worried about that. And the first thing they did was shut down any flights from Africa back to America. Right. So that's why I always thought about it just being interesting. Yeah. That's not what happened here.
No, I think it's a hard call. I mean, where do you draw the line?
Yeah. They drew the line afterwards. It's
New Zealand drew a line, didn't they?
Oh yeah.
Nobody for a long time in and out, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I don't know if people here would tolerate that, but see, New Zealand, it's not a large. Everyone there is an import too, right?
Right. Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah. I think 5% of their population is native.
Yeah. So
pretty much. So. I think you have Matilda going on right now, right?
We have Matilda auditions, and that's actually today. I don't know when your program will hit the air, but or the air. It's not the air anymore, is it? But anyway, Matilda auditions today, and of course we're guilty. We jumped on the bandwagon. The movie's awesome.
I was going to ask you about that.
Absolutely. But I went ahead and went on to MTI and got my license and Musical Theater International, if you don't know what that is, and make sure that we were approved so that we could jump on this early and not get blocked out of it. And we've had a big turnout of kiddos to audition for that. And that'll be exciting. We do have a kids theater here, where we do a lot of children's stuff, but we have 2 adult groups, by the way, so those rotate out. So you'll have to watch to see if you're seeing a kids show or adult show or whatever.
Oh, I didn't know there was an adult show.
Yeah, we have 2 different ones here that have the bluegrass players and the spotlight players.
Right. Okay.
Main difference between those 2, spotlight players is oftentimes intergenerational more and kid very friendly. I wouldn't say youth targeted, but you don't have to work. You bring your kid.
Right.
Bluegrass players, they do some things that you want to bring a kid to, but they also do things you might want to think about. And what I'm saying is like Dracula. Dracula is very scary.
Right.
Our Dracula is very scary. It takes place in and in that world, and you got the blood and this and the lights and the special effects, and and we're not trying to make it any worse than the book, but it's intense, and you may want to bring a little kid to that. Yeah,
I'm a big Dracula fan,
yeah.
And I'd bring my little kids, but I wouldn't advise anyone else because I started watching when I was a kid. I had no supervision, so I got to watch whatever. But let me ask you, I'm gonna forgive my ignorance, but what was the license for? What would you need that for?
Every show that you perform that's written by somebody else is usually licensed through one of the big companies that do licensing for performance rights. It's called a master license. It just means you have the right to perform this show in your theater on these dates.
Right.
And the prices range. Let's say if I was going to do Arsenic and Old Lace. Arsenic and Old Lace would be. It's going to get loud in here, by the way. They're letting out.
I understand.
Arsenic and Old Lace is probably $100. I'm just guessing $150 a performance or whatever. So let's say we were doing 6 performances. I'd need to send them the money in for that so that we could do the performances. But let's say a show like. A Broadway show can run like $2,700, $3,200.
Wow!
For just the rights to do it. So when you go to a theater and see a show, and they're only doing it a weekend or 2 weekends, know that they've paid out $3,000 if no one comes, or if they do come, and that's before they've paid their rent, their electric, their anything else, props, built anything. That's just you have permission to do my show. I'm not making fun of that. The people that wrote the stuff wrote it to make money, okay? I'm just saying that it's a reality that a lot of people don't live in. They don't understand that there's a cost. Yes, you can do my show. Here's your money.
Yeah, I didn't know there was such a cost for that. That's why I asked. That's
it's expensive.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. So what I wanted to ask, I was looking through all you guys' stuff. And I saw where people can submit plays, submit scripts. So how does that work?
Okay, our Festival of Short Plays has been going on for 8 or 9 years now. We stopped it for COVID, because everything stopped. But this will be the first time we're back since 2019. The Short Play Festival is a celebration of local playwrights, or I say local, you could actually be anywhere. There's no restriction to that, but we hope you can come, so maybe you want to be close. Anybody can submit a script. We say a maximum of 30 pages, which is roughly 30 minutes on stage, so we don't want them really over that. And the reason that we've put a limit on it is because we want to get as many shows into the festival as possible, right? So we're doing all these full-length shows. They're not going to have people rehearsing them. Right. So we've got to get actors together to put these shows on and directors to direct them, and I think the most we ever did in a week was like 22 plays. Can you imagine watching 22 plays in a week?
Yeah, I know, right?
It was fun, though. And the playwrights are so good and so talented, and we've just learned so much, and we've made so many wonderful friendships here at the theater with playwrights doing that. And I encourage anybody to try.
Have you ever seen Fleabag?
Feedback?
Fleabag. Yeah. I think you would enjoy it. It's a show on Amazon Prime, but it used to be a one-woman play. So she would act as every single actor in the show and sit on a chair in the middle of a theater and do a whole play by herself. She converted it into a show, and it's amazing. But all of it from her original show on stage is translated perfectly with actors onto the show. And it's amazing. I think you would really enjoy it. I think you would.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, you may not, but I think you would.
I've got Prime. I'll check that out.
So, thinking of playwrights made me think about that. So, how does an adult get into your spotlight group?
Okay, auditions are usually posted. If you go on thespotlightplayhouse.com, you'll see an audition link. And that actually will take you to the Spotlight Acting School, and it's divided into two things: community theater and the acting school. If you're adult, you want to do the community theater, right? Occasionally, the acting school will need adults to step in and fill an adult role, and you're not really enrolling in the school at that point. You're just coming to help out, right? The way that works with the community theater, it's competitive. Whatever roles we have, everyone comes in, auditions. There's no cost or anything. You just come and show up, and we fill out the roles with whoever we can get in there. Now, with the acting school, it's a different thing. We don't turn anybody away.
Right.
Every kiddo deserves their time on the stage, and we make sure it happens. And if that means that that we're doing Winnie the Pooh, and I have 60 kids show up, and there's only 10 roles, we're going to do 6 casts, and we're going to do it for a whole month.
Right.
Okay, so we'll make sure every kiddo gets on that stage. There is a tuition, because obviously we have to pay the bills. And the tuition starts at $85 a month, but we have financial aid, assistance. We don't turn anybody away. No kid gets turned away here at Spotlight.
So you have Matilda's obviously coming up. Do you have anything scheduled afterwards?
Yes, I think we were just talking about that, and I looked over to see if Daisha was coming out the door. Junie B. Jones is on the short list.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I love Junie B. Jones.
Yeah, that would be a good one. We just put together Oz for the community theater, based on the Wizard of Oz musical. And Murders in the Air is coming up for the adults in the community theater. That one is based on the board game Clue. So the audience actually gets a sheet at the beginning of the show to try to keep up with what's going on and figure out who did it. And then they get to decide who did it. And then we have to do whichever ending fits what they decided. So we have to learn like several endings of the show, right? So that'll be fun.
That sounds awesome.
One I'm really looking forward to is Dead Giveaway, written by Pat Cook. Pat Cook was actually the one who wrote You Can't Beat the House as well. He lives down in Houston, and he is just a phenomenal playwright. And I want to meet him sometime. He just seems like a great person. But Dead Giveaway has a bunch of ladies that live in this assisted living, and they hate each other. And it's kind of like Golden Girls on Fire, but then murders are happening. So they're trying to figure out who's killing, okay?
Yeah. That sounds awesome. So is that something that you plan on doing?
Those are the auditions that'll be coming up. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome. So I guess one of the last things I'll ask is, tell me about your staff, about the people who work here. You know, what they do and how much you love them.
I don't have a staff. I got a family.
Yeah.
These people are so fantastic. We get along so well. I don't know. It's just a zen type right now, and I don't want to really mess with it because it's very rare that you get to that point where you're like, oh, this is just really working well.
Right.
But my wife, Letha Hembry, is the music director. She's also the music choir director at Madison Southern High School.
Right.
All right. And then you have Sarah Jeck, who is a director here, and she directs the older kids in musicals, and she also is one of the directors of the STARS program. STARS lets kids get more involved, so if they want to really push it, like GSA, Governor School for the Arts, that's something it really pushes. Then we have Daisha Miller, who is directing the little kids, 4 to 11-year-old musicals. And right now they're rehearsing Press Start, which is based on video games.
Yes, I know what Press Start is.
Right? And they're rehearsing Aristocats. You know the Disney Aristocat, all the jazz music?
Yep, I have it on tape.
That is so good. So they're rehearsing those. Then we have Jaslyn Threckeld, who is one of our assistant directors, who's now stepping up to do a little more lead directing as well. She was one of our students, so actually we have one of our own, as a director now. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Kelly Fisher, one of our choreographers, she is phenomenal, and it's a blessing to have her. She is so talented. I know I'm going to leave somebody out. I think that's Bailey Smith just joined as an assistant director, so we'll see. She was one of our students as well, so super glad to have her back. And I think that's got the directors covered, but we have other staff like Susan Coleman. She's my brain. She keeps me organized and focused because I go a little ADD squirrely,
Right.
It's the artsy side of me. Good at running the business, but it's easy to distract me because I get so excited about the things that are going on here.
Yeah.
I direct most of the straight plays, and then I'll do a musical every once in a while, like Oz. I'm doing Oz.
Yeah, trust me, I understand. Doing any type of creative work, you need someone to be your brain as well. So tell me, where can we find you? All your social media platforms, and
We're everywhere. We're TikTok. We're Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I think there's a Pinterest out there, but I don't use it. So. We're everywhere, and just search for the easiest way to find us is Spotlight Acting School. Then you can find links to the Playhouse. The Playhouse not as active on social media except for Facebook, because we just found people will go to the web to come to the theater to see a show, or they'll look at it on a Facebook thing. But the other social media is where you kind of interact. The school does better at that than the Playhouse does. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate your time coming on and doing this.
Well, I'm glad you're doing it, and I wish you the best. This is the stuff I teach kids to do, so I'm glad. Yeah. In film school, we do a whole session on interviews and shows
really?
and how to do this, and yeah.
I might come to one. There's more for me to learn, for sure.
You're welcome anytime.
I'd love to. When's your next one?
Film school kicks up in March.
March. Okay. March. I'll mark it down, man. Thank you. Oh, I'll probably message you again and say, hey, which day in March if you don't post it. So thank you again. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Oh.